Here we are. Good afternoon. Here we are in Finding Voice and Grace in the Hard Stuff. I'm Susan Tweit, and we're going to do a workshop in this really interesting way, which is both online and in person. And we in person are going to be sharing, and I wish we could do that with you online people, but we can't. So we're going to just talk about what we're sharing about and what we're learning. Our aim with this, we only have less than an hour. But what I want to give you is the tools I use when I'm writing about stuff that's hard for me so that you can use them when you're writing about stuff that's hard for you. And why do we write about that stuff? I mean, think about it. Do you ever get to a place in your writing where you just kind of skip and move on? And you're like, I don't think I want to touch that today. And maybe not next week, and maybe not next year. But it's something that nags at you. You know how when you were a kid and there was the monster in the closet, and the more you didn't look in the closet, the bigger the monster got, and the meaner and the more scared you got of it? We have things we want to write about that are the same way. And the longer we do this and pretend they're not there, the harder it gets to access them. But they're parts of our story that are rich and useful, if super difficult to deal with. So what I want to give you is a writing exercise that allows you to get at that hard stuff. And I'm going to caution you first, this is not therapy. And if you find yourself getting into some hard stuff in your writing that causes you serious anxiety, that you start losing your hair or, getting super angry or being unable to sleep, then you need to work with a professional. This is more than just writing. And I don't want anybody to be in a situation where they're alone in a room with a computer or just their pad of paper and they've gone into something bigger than they can handle by themselves. But we all carry baggage. And what I want to do for you is give you a way to look at that baggage quite literally, to visualize it, open up the conveyance you carry your baggage in, that metaphorical conveyance, and start looking at what's in there and seeing if it's useful to you for your writing, if you can use it in your stories to give them more power. And I'm kind of the queen of that. My second memoir just came out, and for somebody who's a scientist and is supposed to be dispassionate and have distance from her life, I don't. And my writing is better for it. I've had to learn how to confront my own baggage and my own demons in my closet. My latest memoir, which I'm going to do a brief commercial on, Bless the Birds, is about living with death. I spent 2.5 years taking care of my husband through his death with brain cancer, and we lived every moment of that time. And at the same time, because I like to keep my life simple, my mother was dying, and I took care of her as well at home, and helped her have the death she wanted. So I had to really look at my baggage in writing about that in a way that would appeal to other people. And I use this technique a lot. So we're going to spend some time today looking at our metaphorical baggage, looking at whether we carry it in a bag or a suitcase or a knapsack or whatever metaphorical conveyance you use to carry your baggage in. We're going to describe that conveyance, and then we're going to open it up and look at the first thing that we see. And again, if at some point you feel seriously like this is a bad idea, just stop, close it up again. Keep describing the outside, don't go there. But if it's just sort of like a feeling, that's okay. And if it brings you to tears, that's okay too. We're all humans, we cry, we sometimes throw things. I'm known for throwing my good wine glasses at the wall occasionally. I don't like to admit that, but it's true. Every now and then I'm just kind of pissed. So don't throw the wine glasses at the wall, but it's okay if we have strong emotions come out in this workshop. It's a safe space, it's fine. I gave you a handout, and those of you who are online, that handout will be online, yes. I'm looking at Kathy. It will be online as a PDF, and you can look at it, that talks about what hard stuff is. And I want to go over that for a minute, because when I say hard stuff, I literally mean the things you lie to yourself about. And let's be honest, we all lie by at least omission to ourselves about some things in our lives. We just don't want to confront them. They're the memories that you gloss over, that you say, I'm just not ready to look at that yet, but yet they haunt you. They're the recollections or fragments that we sort of look at sideways and never really want to face entirely. They're the stories that you try to write over and over and they never quite work, but you keep coming back and trying to work on them. They're the stories that you can't bring yourself to write. You know they're in there, but you just can't go there. And they might be your own personal experience, or they might be the stories you know from your family that you're like, don't want to touch that, but yet they haunt you. It's the stuff that is in there, you know you got to deal with it somehow, but you just can't quite. This is a workshop about those stories. So we grab our courage, which to me is, I love etymology. Courage, the word comes from the French, cor, heart. It's the strength that comes from our hearts. It's not this. It's not I can pick up a hay bale and screw up my left shoulder unloading 151 of them off a flatbed trailer like I did last fall. It's the courage that comes from here. It's the courage that comes from our heart. It's not the muscling through. It's the courage that comes from inside, from the best parts of ourselves. That's courage. And when you're confronting the hard stuff in your writing, that's what you use. You don't try to be brittle and flex hard and you soften and you say, what is that? What does it have to tell me? What do I have to learn from it? And what does it have to give to all of my readers too? So that's what we're going to use in this workshop. And I have a couple of quotes on here, and I love some of these quotes from people's memoirs that illustrate why it matters to bring that to our writing and what it gives us. Lisa Dale Norton, in her memoir, Hawk Flies Above, which is about her life in the sandhills of Nebraska, I come to the writing of this story slowly and with much resistance. Anybody in here recognize that feeling? The reasons why are mixed up, complex, and labyrinthine, really. You get points for using labyrinthine in a good way in a memoir, I gotta say. When I try and find my way through them, but most simply, and here's where her courage comes out, I do not remember the summer of 1984. Why? I was drinking then. Ooh, how hard is it to say those 4 words? Why? It was simple. I was drinking then. To admit, I don't remember that summer because I was drinking then. Ken Lamberton, in his amazing memoir, Wilderness and Razor Wire, in 1986, I was named Teacher of the Year for the Mesa, Arizona Public Schools. I believed I was invulnerable. Then, at the end of that school year, I became infatuated with one of my students. Infatuation led to romance and then obsession. We ran away together to start a new life in Colorado. I was 27 years old. She was 14. Can you imagine what it must have been like for him to admit that in public, in print, and to write the story of what he learned from those years and what saved him, how he was able to confront it? And what it doesn't say in this paragraph is that he was married and his wife was pregnant with daughter 3. And by the way, they all still love him. And his girls are fabulous. One of them is an award-winning writer. Denise Chavez, from her memoir, A Taco Testimony. Over the years, my father's drinking worsened and caused him throat problems. It began with sputtering coughs and a difficulty swallowing. I dreaded eating with my father in public places. Once in a Luby's cafeteria, he nearly choked to death. His face turned red, then purple. Much to his chagrin and visible anger, her father was a lawyer, I yelled out to anyone within earshot, "Can anyone help us?" He was truly furious. I knew her dad. What a hard thing to write about the dad she loved, to be able to say he was drinking and it caused him throat problems. He embarrassed me so much in public places and I feared for his life. That's a hard thing. It's come to me in my life over the writing I've done that the reason we write about this hard stuff is because we all have it in our lives. Life is not perfect. It's messy. Sometimes it's ugly. It can be super painful. Things don't happen according to plan. When the lost girl isn't found safe, when the winter storm nukes the power grid as it did in Texas and people die by the hundreds in their homes where they should be safe. The tumor turns out to be inoperable and deadly. The planet isn't recovering from what we're doing to it. We clutch. We want to just hide. But that's the point that we really need to write. We need to plumb those hard feelings, the anger, the fear, the grief, the horror, and write about them, because that's a common human experience. That's the power of being human, is how do we deal with those super hard times? How do we deal with those really super difficult memories? How do we come out the other side and make them, use them for something beyond the hard moment, the anger of the moment or the fear of the moment? That's why we do this work. We use our storytelling tools, we set the scene, we describe our characters, we use all the tools we can to tell about these hard times, and then we figure out where they're leading us. But we have to actually look at that baggage, we have to look at that hard time square in the face to be able to tell the stories. And that's what we're going to do today in this workshop that we're in. And I'm going to start you off with that. And so the first thing we're going to do is just take 257. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I'm going to be super generous and also super hard, and make you envision where you carry your baggage. Do you have a bag? Do you have a briefcase? Is it the antique trunk in the attic? What is it? Anybody, just tell me, can you envision right now where you carry your hard stuff? What does it look like?
It's a Kelty backpack.
It's a Kelty backpack. I like that. Very descriptive. What color is it, by the way?
Blue.
Blue. Mine was green. Okay. Who else? Can anybody see where they carry their baggage? What does it look like?
I kind of imagine like a bouquet of balloons, which I know you don't
love
like.
it. Yeah.
As baggage, because I don't
But-
have it. It's not there.
Right. It's this happy
everything
image,
in a
right.
bouquet of balloons anywhere, it's a disaster. Like you can't fit it in the car. You can't open
Right.
up the door.
Right. Right.
Like it's there. It's baggage, but I don't really feel like it's not there.
It's a bouquet of balloons, which seems so happy, but yet.
It's really not.
And then when the balloons start losing their helium and they get so weird and they follow you around at this level, I mean, really, isn't that
like
creepy?
The wind catches them. And
Yes.
they make that huge knot.
It's like when
around each
clowns
other.
are not funny anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Who else?
Yeah.
Who else imagines?
I see mine more like in the pit of my stomach.
It's internal baggage in the pit of your stomach. Yeah, those butterflies that really aren't pretty. Yeah. Okay.
I hadn't thought about it till you brought it up, but the vision in my head was like a locked safe.
A locked safe. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, you're gonna have to pick the lock. That's what's next. Anybody else before we dive right in?
Mine's more of a dump truck.
A dump truck. Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. No, I like that. And there's noises that go with it.
Exactly.
So what I'm going to ask you to do is look at where you carry your baggage, describe it, and I want to know, does it have sounds like the dump truck? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? I want to know everything, just the exterior. We're not going in yet. I want you to take, and now we're going to do 4 minutes. I want you to take 4 minutes and write as detailed a description as you can. How big it is. If it's a dump truck, is it nicely painted or is the paint flaking off? If it's a suitcase, is it new or old, and what's it made of? I want material, I want shape, I want size, yeah. All of that. So you got 4 minutes. And those of you watching this recording, you don't get away from this without writing about it too. You got 4 minutes. Go for it. Be detailed. This is your 30-second warning. So wrap up those thoughts. That was somebody's ringer out in the hall. Okay. Was the conveyance what you thought it was? Were you surprised? Anybody startled by what they saw as the conveyance of their baggage, their hard stuff?
There was what was surprised to me was the fact that with each step there was a squeak
Oh,
to the frame,
to the frame.
which often was reassuring, but then on the other hand,
Yeah,
because of what it's hauling, it's a constant reminder.
yeah. So you're carrying your baggage in a backpack, and every step it
It
squeaks.
squeaks.
It's a reminder of what you're carrying, even if it's not heavy, yeah.
I would not have guessed this is where this would go at all. I carry my baggage in fat cells, stacked layer by layer, roll by roll into cellulite walls that render me invisible to passers-by. It's not a specific food which makes me obese. It's the fist clenching whatever is handy and stuffing that down my throat, preventing angry words from being said,
Wow.
preventing my fist from smashing a face.
Wow, that is powerful work. And that's real, true work.
Am I done now?
Good for you. No, you're not, but you just uncovered something super important and a story that many of us can resonate with. I don't have to have, and I don't have much body fat, but I have issues with eating, and I think many, many, many people do. In our lives, we use food as a substitute for a lot of stuff. So, beautiful work.
I didn't realize that was where I was carrying my baggage.
Well, the interesting thing about this just went to sleep. It's not supposed to do that.
Just punch the.
Got it. The interesting thing about this exercise is that we all carry baggage, and we are so skilled at pretending we don't and at hiding it from our own selves. And the moment you just honor it by saying, oh, I'm carrying baggage, let me describe the conveyance I'm carrying it in, it's right there wanting to speak to you. We think of baggage as a bad thing, but it's really part of who we are. It's voices we're just not listening to. And as soon as you literally honor it by saying, I want to look at you, it can be right there. And you start hearing the voices or stories or memories or whatever that you've just been pretending aren't there. Whether it's the balloons up in the sky or the cellulite or the squeak of the backpack at every step. So, good work. Who else wants to describe what they saw, felt, heard in their conveyance? Art, yes.
Well, mine, as I said, it's in the pit of my stomach, and as I was starting to write it, suddenly dawned on me that it often works its way up into my heart, where because it's a conflict,
Yeah.
and then it works its way up into my brain, where one side of the conflict argues with the other side, and there's never a resolution to it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's an internal conflict that works its way from, and isn't it interesting, biologically, your gut is where about 60% of your immune cells live. We wouldn't think of that, but it's true. So when we say we have a feeling in our gut, we really do. And when we respond to something with a clenching in our gut or butterflies in our gut or throwing up or whatever, it's because our body is feeling that internal conflict. And you've moved, and yours moved from your gut, where it's so touchy, to your heart, which is similarly touchy, and then to your intellect, which is like, oh, let me take a step back. So, very interesting. That's, you got something to work with there, Art. Who else? There's no requirement for sharing anything, but if you want to, go ahead.
I stuck with the balloons and I was trying to think of like what sounds balloon makes. And then I was like, you know, sometimes just out of the blue, a balloon will just pop and like scare you to death.
Yeah.
I was like, that does happen with my baggage. Like every now and then, like I don't think it's there, and then it like hits like that right thing, and you're like, oh, there it is for everybody to see.
Yeah, the balloon popping and you going, oh, yeah, and things raining down on you. Yeah, that's a cool metaphor actually. There's some interesting stuff to mine in there. Was that useful for everybody? Just quick check. Looked like you were all writing away. All right. And remember, in this kind of writing, it's really important to listen carefully as well as look. So use your other senses beyond just vision when you're describing it, like the sound or the feel, smell, things like that, because that helps make it more real. And also remember that if you have to step back, that's okay. There's no dishonor in realizing you've gotten in over your head and you don't want to go any farther. But make note. When I get to that point in working with hard stuff, I'll write out that I got to a place that I just can't deal with today. And that reminds me to go back there if I can. And it also sort of notes, these are notes you're taking about raw material that you'll use for writing. And so it's important to note how you're feeling. I got to here and I just couldn't push myself any farther. I felt shaky or whatever. Just give yourself reminders of what it was like to work with that material, because that will help you when you use it in your stories, and you will someday. All this is useful material. You have things to write. These are parts of your life that want to speak to you, and that hard stuff gives you material to reach readers. It's interesting to me that the work that's most resonant when we read other writing is not the pretty, happy stuff. It's not the birds were singing and the waterfall was making great noises and all that. And then I heard a sound on the trail that made my heart clench, and I realized, oh my heavens, it's those moments that we share of the hard times, the terror or the memories or the whatever. It's not the butterflies and the wonderful stuff. That's all great to read about, but it's when we're really moved, it's by the difficult things. And the more honest and honorable we can be about those difficult things, the more closely we touch our readers, and the more we reach our goal, which is when we're writing, we're humans, and we're writing about what it is to be human, whether we're writing about that in history or whether we're writing about it in science fiction or whatever. We are telling over and over again the story of what it is to be human and how we can be the best people we can be with whatever we have. So the more personal we can be, the more real we can be, the more we can honor the struggles we've had in our lives, the more we'll touch our readers. It's not I'm great, I have it all figured out, I'm so wise, I'm so amazing. That's not when we compel our readers. That's when they're like, I'm not, yeah, fine, I'll flip to the next chapter and see if there's something more interesting. It's the times we stumble and fall and struggle that are what makes us more human and more interesting to read. So if you're up for it, the next thing I want you to do is to take a look inside, whether it's inside your gut, inside your fat cells, in those balloons, in your backpack, in whatever the place you're carrying your baggage. And I want to know, is it dark in there? Is it light in there? Is it loud? Is it smelly? Is the dump truck backing up? Is it dumping a load? What does that load look like? What's the first thing you see? How big is it? Is it approachable? Does it make you want to just back away, scream and run? Metaphorically open up where your hard stuff is and tell me what's in there. Okay, so let's do we're going to do another 4 minutes on that. And be as detailed as you can. Don't stint on the senses and the sounds and all that. So for those of you watching online, you're writing too, right? Because that's what we're all doing here in the room, even me. This is your half-minute warning. Everybody found something to write about, I see. This can be super intense, so if you do it by yourself or with a writing group, pace yourself. Don't try to bite off too much. Don't try to take breaks. When I do this exercise with groups, we do a break every 15 minutes and we go outside and walk around and just roll our shoulders and, just kind of, okay. Because it can be pretty intense looking at that stuff. Did anybody find anything they want to talk about? Did everybody find something? That's the first question, something you could describe. Was it what you expected? Yes, no?
No. Mine was, it turned out to be a series of kind of like videos
Oh, interesting.
of various firefights I was involved in as a
Yeah.
air controller.
As a pilot, yeah.
Having seeing men my guys on the ground,
Yeah.
wounded, putting napalm bombs on the enemy and
Yeah.
being successful, and the conflicting emotions of fear
Right.
and elation
Yeah,
and grief
yeah, yeah.
and guilt.
And guilt, yeah. So seeing those internal videos of the memories of being involved in those firefights in Vietnam. And yeah, that's a great, did you note those conflicting emotions? Because that's really an interesting thread to follow is,
Did I know then?
did you note in your writing, did you note
Oh, yeah.
the emotions? Because that's a really, to try and hold in one body in one moment the emotions of elation and guilt and grief and fear is an enormously intense amount of emotion to hold in yourself. I could imagine writing a series of poems and each one titled one emotion, guilt, grief,
Anyway,
fear.
I've
I bet you've
some
done
of
that.
it,
Yeah.
I mean, little bits of it.
Yeah.
Showing up in poems.
You might want to do a video series of poems. That would be interesting, to put those images into words as a stream. Life gives us some tough stuff to deal with, that's for sure. There's no doubt about it. Anybody else?
I'm not sure I'm doing this right.
Yeah, there is no right or wrong.
Oh, okay, well, that's good then. It doesn't seem like I'm following the same, mine, I guess, maybe aren't as deep, I don't know.
That's okay. It's whatever's in there. It's not, there's no prescription. This is just a way of getting into being able to see the stuff we usually avoid and see what's there and experience it and use it for other work. And sometimes it's deep, intense stuff, and sometimes it's not. That's all right. And sometimes we have, so I think of my baggage, I'm very literal in a way in terms of the hard stuff I carry from my stories, like, living through someone's death right there with them in the room. I cared for my late husband. He said one night, to our daughter, well, Suze is now not just my, what do you call that? Urinal jockey, she's my diaper jockey too. I was like, oh yeah, those are roles I wanted. And I'm very literal about where I keep those memories. I see the conveyance I keep them in, and some of them I don't want to touch yet. As he said once, after we had been taking care of his dad in hospice care, he said, wiping your parents' butt is a milestone none of us really want to achieve. And I thought, yeah, one night I was taking care of him and he was not able to move. I couldn't even dance him to the commode anymore. And I thought to myself, yeah, and wiping your spouse's butt is really a milestone you don't want to achieve. And I filed that away and thought, oh man, do I even want to go back to how that felt in that moment? And the answer is no, but in writing a memoir about it, I had to. And so I envisioned, it's a bedpan. I envisioned a bedpan wrapped in hospital wrap, and I've had to unwrap it and see what's in there. Because I'm super literal. Kind of horrible. and that helped me deal with stuff that I would otherwise, I'm a cheerful person. I like to look at the sunny side of life, but you know what? Life's not all sunny. So I had to literally see visually the things I was avoiding in order to be able to get to the emotions that went with them. You can't write memoir and just gloss over the surface. It doesn't work. It's not memoir. Because the point of writing memoir is to take a piece of your life and find the meaning in it and be able to make it universal for other people. And so you have to get in there, and you don't have to be, I'm not really the kind of memoirist who likes to tell everybody every dirty detail, but you do have to tell enough that it's real and people can understand why it shaped you the way it did and what they have to learn from it. So you have to get enough in there that they can. And I had a reader tell me with this memoir, she said, I didn't know you ever used cuss words. And I was like, honey, I was a redhead for most of my life. Trust me, I go off like a bottle rocket. It's loud, it's not pretty. And I had to fess up to that. I mean, I'm the woman who was standing on a street in San Francisco with her terminally man dying from brain cancer, and we'd gone to visit our daughter in San Francisco. We took our honeymoon at the end of his life because we never had time when he was younger. We never made time when he was younger. And so we took our honeymoon. We did a 4,000-mile road trip, and this memoir is framed by that road trip, which was both funny and tragic. And I'm standing on a street corner waiting for the light to change with my 6-foot-tall, 185-pound husband, and he doesn't even wait for the light to change. He walks straight out into 4 lanes of traffic on Columbus Avenue right in front of a bus, and I grabbed the back of his shirt and I yanked him back to the curb, and I said, God damn it, I didn't bring you all this way to get you killed in traffic. Wait for the fucking light to change. And he looked at me and he said, I'm sorry, I was just enjoying walking across a city we both love. And I thought, oh, shit. Way to make me feel really small. First, you yell at the guy with terminal brain cancer who doesn't remember the important things like you're supposed to wait for the traffic light anymore. And then he says, I was just enjoying walking across a city we both love. And I'm like, oh my God, how low can I sink? But that's what being a caregiver for somebody like with terminal brain cancer is. You are their shepherd. You are their butt wiper, you're all that stuff. And when it's me, there are times when I'm just gonna lose it. So I had to actually unpack those memories and be real about I was the woman who stood on the street corner and yelled at my husband when he was dying of brain cancer, because that's where I was at that moment. And I wouldn't be able to do that kind of writing if I didn't use this exercise, because really I would like to be someone bigger than that. But I'm not, Got to be the person I am or the story doesn't resonate. So, anybody else? Now that I've managed to use, 3 cuss words in 2 sentences? That would be me.
Well, mine's just air. Like inside mine is air, and that made me think, well, I'm just dragging with me past pain. You know what I mean? Like the embarrassment, regret, pain, hurt. And then the aha was like, why don't I just let them go?
Yeah.
So that was I didn't think I would arrive there.
Yeah.
You just have to let them go.
Yeah. And it's not, and I know, it's not exactly that easy, but having that moment of realizing, it doesn't actually have to be hard. I don't actually have to carry it with me.
You probably do have to open it up and unpack.
Yeah.
Because it's nothing tangible, it's just an experience.
But what?
Have to drag it everywhere.
Exactly. And what a great essay that would make is talking about realizing, they pop and it's just air. And there's experiences in there, but it turns out I don't actually have to pull these balloons along with me my whole life. That's a way of looking at it that would be useful to a lot of people. It's like when we're kids and the boogeyman under the bed or in the closet or whatever, that sound we hear every night when the house settles around us and we're sure it's the monster. And then we realize, it's not actually a monster, That kind of thing is really powerful for people to read, to realize, other people go through that too. And the way each of us voices it, and this is what's so interesting to me about this kind of exercise, is we can all have the experience of carrying pain with us, and yet we're all going to describe it differently. It's going to be the dump truck, it's going to be the cellulite, it's going to be the movies, it's going to be the backpack, it's going to be the balloons. Someone who doesn't resonate with dump trucks is going to resonate with balloons. Someone, telling the story in different ways, talking about that pain, talking about the hard things in our life through our own perspective will appeal to different readers. The way I say it isn't going to appeal to some people. The way you see it will appeal to people that I don't appeal to. And that's the magic of writing, is that we all bring our own perspective to the story. We all tell it different ways. Hard times are universal for humans, but the fact that each of us sees those hard times, experiences them, feels them through a different perspective is what makes writing so amazing and why it's so important. Stories change our lives, but the same story isn't going to change everybody's lives. So we need all of your stories. We need all of those perspectives. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're compelled to write. It's not just that we're crazy, but that's true as well. Are you guys up for one more? What do we have time for? When is this over? Do we have 15 minutes? Okay. How about this? How about you take what you found in there and ask it what it has to say to you, whether it's just air or whatever it is. Just spend, and I'm going to give you even less time. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. And I want you just to ask it what it has to say to you and just write a few sentences about what answer you hear. Thirty seconds left. There is no right or wrong. It's what you find. That's all. And it'll be different every time you try it, too. It'll be different every time you try it. So the mood you're in will partly dictate what you see when you try the exercise. I would try it again at different times. For me, it has to be pretty solitary. Something I don't do well around a lot of other people. Although I've just wrote something up here, I was like, whoa, didn't know that was in there. But I've also practiced with it a number of times. So if it interests you, try it in a different situation. See what you find. I saw y'all writing. Did you hear anything?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah, it said what you feel is okay, often normal for others. But what you've done with it is the real problem.
Ooh.
Get over it, make amends, let me go and move on.
That's a darn wise internal voice. Wow.
Yeah, I don't listen to it all.
Let's see. You could keep not listening, or you could maybe, It's funny how we do often have the wisdom we need inside of us. We just don't stop to listen. Imagine. Anybody else?
Yeah. You said to me that you've been dealing with this for half a century, and you have dealt with bits and pieces of it. But the whole thing, and it asks a question, is it because there's no resolution?
Is it because there's no resolution?
Because
Yes.
both sides are right.
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. Is there no resolution because both sides are right? There is no right or wrong in those memories. It's just what you experienced. Yeah. Yeah. I think you need to write an epic poem, Art. I'm serious. I'm serious. I do. I think you need to write a whole long poem examining the complexity of that. And maybe it comes in short bits, but I think there is a through narrative there that maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but it'd be interesting to play with. Because there is no right or wrong. I mean, life is messy. Very often, the thorny things that come up are not black or white, and that's why they're so difficult, is there's not some this or that, it's the whole range in between. And that's also the human condition. When we want it to be black or white, right or wrong, that's when we get ourselves into trouble often. It's that it's not that simple. And that is what really trips us up, because we want it to be simple. I like happy endings myself, and really, life isn't always like that. Anybody else? I see thinking happening back there. So I give you this exercise as a way to deal with kind of anything that stumps you in your writing. It doesn't have to be something really hard. You can just, when you get to a point you're stuck in your writing, you can try to envision what the stuck thing lives in. Maybe the stuck part of your writing is a house and you need to go visit it. There's a wonderful thing that happens when we try to envision where we're stuck in writing. Just stop, close your eyes, and imagine what it is that has you stuck. Is it a person? Is it a memory? Is it a place? Is it a dictionary? Have you just run out of the right words? Just try to envision it. There's something that happens when we get into seeing and out of using words that can often take us around a problem. I used to get mad at my late husband, and I would stomp outside and hide behind my favorite rock next to a sagebrush shrub that I'd planted years before and sulk for a while. And then I would just envision him as the mountain, because he was bigger than me. I couldn't move him. And he was metaphorically bigger than me too. He was a bigger than life sort of character. And I would imagine him as the mountain, and then I would imagine the path around it. You can't move it, so how do you get around it? There's something wonderful about putting the words aside for a minute when you're stuck with your writing and ask yourself, well, what does this thing I'm stuck at look like? And if you can, peel apart its layers or find the path around it or listen to it or whatever and see what happens. Marvelous things can happen in your writing, or not. And if they don't, you just move on. And sometimes you're just stuck and you have to set it aside for a few weeks or a few months or a few years. I'm a slow writer. It takes me years sometimes with books. It took me 9 years to write this latest memoir. I didn't work on it every day. I just want to say that offhand, right out. But it did take me a long time.
Could I say it's an absolutely beautiful book?
Thank you, Art. Could you say it's an absolutely beautiful book? Yes, you could, and I would say thank you. Anybody have any questions, any thoughts? I'm going to end with a quote that I used in Bless the Birds, this book, and it's not my writing, but it applies to it really describes my approach to life. I'm a nature person. I'm very attuned to the non-human world, the world that goes beyond we humans. We're part of it. and the other creatures and plants that inhabit it with us. And Terry Tempest Williams, in her book Refuge, said something that really sticks with me about my approach to life and to writing. She says, I pray to the birds because they remind me of what I love rather than what I fear. And at the end of my prayers, they teach me how to listen. And in my writing, I try to reach beyond my everyday experience into the larger world and reach to the other voices, the other people, the other beings, and listen. I try to be reminded of what I love rather than what I fear, even when what I fear is what I'm writing about. And I try to listen to it. And this exercise is about listening. So, thank you.